All right, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Alexander.
Absolutely. So we'll get started where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memories, what are we getting into?
The earliest childhood memory, I think, the earliest memory would probably be, around 2 years old.
Okay.
2 or 3. I had severe asthma growing up, so I just remember like being in a hospital with things strapped onto me, and I was hooked onto like a nebulizer, which is like a breathing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like sitting there with the thing in my mouth, and it's like literally pumping air into my lungs as I just sit there, like not able to truly understand what's going on. I'm just sitting there kind of taking everything in. So that's one of the earliest memories that I can think of for sure.
Was that from was it sports induced or just in general you had asthma?
So yeah, in general, I was born with asthma. I think like as soon as I was born, diagnosed with asthma, and it was something that I kind of dealt with.
Yeah.
The moment I was born. So as long as I can remember, I've always had severe asthma, and due to it, I started sports way later in life.
Okay.
Than I wanted to, because it was so severe, and my mom was like, "Yeah, you can't play sports. I'm scared." So
at a young age, were you continuously having like asthma attacks, or like what did it look like growing up through, like, we'll say, elementary school?
Yeah, so a lot of asthma attacks. It was so bad that like it was like heat induced. So
Okay.
in the summer, if I would go outside, just the heat alone, if I start running too fast and I'm breathing heavily, it would trigger my asthma.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was pretty much all the way until about middle school.
Okay.
And that was majority of my life. And I tried to convince my parents, like, "Hey, I'm feeling better." It was like, nope. It wasn't until it started to become mild. They were like, "Okay, now we'll consider it." At least my dad, then he convinced my mom.
So around middle school, like, why do you think the asthma changed? Was it because you're getting in better shape, or was there less reasons for the asthma? Or like, what were you told?
Now I think for sure right now it's allergy induced, but I just think I was just outgrowing it.
Yeah.
I think I think most people kind of outgrow it, but I think that was the case for me as I got older, maturing, just body developing.
Yeah.
My parents just making sure I wasn't doing anything strenuous to kind of exacerbate it.
Yeah.
So I was just taking care of myself and doing everything I needed to do to be in the best shape I needed to be.
Yeah.
To kind of overcome that.
For me, it was just sports induced, and whenever I'd get the nebulizer, I'd feel like I would be able to get big breaths in.
Yep.
Did the doctors say it was like a muscle that you could work on? Did they give you exercises to like improve your abilities to breathe, or it's just like, hey, here's some drugs, like let's hopefully get over this?
Hey, as long as I remember, as far as I remember, if it wasn't the breathing machine, it was the inhaler.
Okay. Yep.
So that was the remedy to me. So as far as I was concerned, I never knew anything other than, hey, because of my asthma, I have to do this to combat, my breathing problems, my coughing. And eventually it was sports induced too.
Right.
And I kind of overcame that as well.
Yeah. I remember in high school, I was playing tennis, not super intense. But I was like, man, I feel like, is this giving me too much an advantage? Like sometimes I would take it, sometimes I wouldn't. I'm like, what do we got going on here? So in middle school, when you were allowed to play sports, what were you eyeballing? What sports did you do?
So the moment I could play football, the moment I started watching football, I was like, man, this is what I want to do. I was like, I want to play football. So I was begging my parents in elementary, begging them like, hey, can I do this? It was like, no. I did some like youth basketball here and there. We was at a community center in Romeoville. So my parents signed us up for some basketball. But the moment I could play football, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And so I begged my dad. My dad played football, was really good. My uncle played football, really good. So I think I inherited it, but it wasn't until I got the okay from mom. So she was like, okay, you can try it. And then as soon as I started, I fell in love with it.
Yeah. So were you watching your dad and uncle play football, or was it watching on TV? What got you so excited about football?
Just TV.
Okay.
Just watching the Bears. Now I'm not a Bears fan, but when we moved to Illinois, I'm originally from Memphis, like I mentioned to you. And so when we moved to Illinois, I just remember watching the Bears game, Devin Hester.
Okay.
And then just doing my research, Barry Sanders. You know, just looking at all the greats and just falling in love with playing football, sport, just the sport itself.
So you got to start playing a little bit of football. What was it like? Was it contact? Was it touch? What were you getting into?
Yep, my first year was contact.
Really?
Yep.
Just get right
into it. So my 7th grade year, and I was in Memphis, and so this is back in when you have the Oklahoma drills.
Okay.
That was my initiation to contact. Yeah. So man, I got straight into it. I played defensive end my first year because in the 7th grade, everybody's pretty much the same size.
Yeah.
So and actually I had a great first year. You know, for somebody who had no experience. All my friends, everybody that's played, they've been doing it since they were like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So for me, I was the odd man out, but just from watching it so much, it helped prepare me for when I started playing.
Yeah. How was it playing on a team sport, since that was the first one that seems like you were able to jump into?
I loved it. I loved it. I outside of before that,
you said a little bit of basketball.
Yeah, a little bit of basketball, but I never took basketball serious. I wasn't that great. My older brother was really good, but just from a I guess like a camaraderie standpoint, I never had that.
Okay.
You know, I was bullied a lot growing up.
All right.
And I didn't have a lot of male friends actually, so it wasn't until I started playing football, and you know, was one of, you know, when you are somewhat good, you get some respect.
Yeah.
And that's why I started to build more male friends. But before that, didn't have a lot of guy friends. Was picked on. Not to say I wasn't necessarily a nerd, but yeah, I wasn't too much into what everybody else was into when I was younger.
All right. So when did the bullying start, and what were they going in on you for?
Man, I used to have a gap, believe it or not.
Okay, let's go.
So
nice.
I just probably actually during COVID around that time I got braces.
Okay.
But the biggest thing was my gap in Memphis. It's called checking. Out here they call it flaming. It's just you got to have thick skin.
Yeah.
All right, or you got to know how to fight. Where I'm from, and I knew neither, so I just had to take it. Actually, I had thick skin, but as early as I can remember, man, for sure in the 2nd grade, this guy named Kelvin Kirksey. All right, shout out Kelvin. And he's actually one of my close friends now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first moved to Illinois, he was one of the first guys I met in the 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Like we sat in front of each other, and I don't know what happened, but somewhere in between there, he just became my bully.
Yeah.
And then one of his close friends became my bully, Devin Riley, who is also one of my close friends now. Man, they just bullied me bad. I never forgot that. And and of course that just kind of happened it just continued to happen over time. So
So are they're just making fun of your teeth, making fun of what you're wearing, like whatever you...
All of the above.
Yeah.
Everything you can think of. I even got hit one time.
Damn.
I got hit one time trying to defend myself, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna just be quiet now.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to fight then. Then I eventually learned how to fight, just so I can at least protect myself. Then I got more confident and knowing that I can defend myself at the very minimum.
Right.
But I was bullied to the extreme growing up, and it was never something. As a kid, it was never something that I was like, okay, this happened to me, I'm gonna do it to somebody else. It was always something that when it happened to me, I couldn't understand. I'm like, why am I getting bullied?
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And then I started to see, bullying is a phenomenon. It don't just happen to me.
Right.
It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
So then once I started to understand that, I was like, wow, I didn't understand that before, but it's more normal than I thought.
So how long did it take for you to more or less understand that the bullying was happening to a lot of people?
I think like maybe high school. I started hearing people talk about it more and more, and then like high school I played football, and then people it wasn't as prevalent, but I know for sure like people would kind of be like, bullying is different as you get older. It's not direct and it's not as extreme.
Yeah.
But it's subliminal, and it's like, and you shouldn't be hanging out with this person now, and it's kind of attacking you in different ways. So when I started noticing that in high school with people that I hung out with, people would talk to me. Oh, I'm sorry. And actually, in middle school when I first moved back, and I met my bullies again.
Yeah.
And we started to become friends. Just talking to them about it and other people about it, making a joke out of it. And I started getting people relating to me.
Okay.
And saying like, oh yeah, we've been through it. And of course, like just hearing it around the news, people coming to schools talking about it. So that's when I started to open up my mind about it.
When you were bullied, would you go home and like cry about it? Would you talk to your parents? Like how did it affect you as a kid?
I never told my parents about it.
Okay.
My relationship with my parents growing up wasn't like that.
Right.
So I just took it.
Okay.
I just took it. And then I would go home and I was always a kid that whenever I was alone, I would just think about things.
Okay.
So like I just would sit there and think, just like I just told you, like, why is bullying a thing? Like, why is this happening to me?
Right.
Should I do it to somebody else? Like I was just very introspective and like I didn't really have people I could vent to like that, or at least I thought I didn't. So that was something that I had to deal with myself.
Do you feel like it affected your self-worth as when you were dealing with that, or how do you feel like it affected you?
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And like I said, it wasn't until I started playing football and just that's where I kind of gained confidence, because I was every team I played on, I was pretty much good. I ain't gonna say the best. I've played with some great football players, but definitely I played a significant role on every team that I've been on. So that gave me some status, what people call it, and respect. And I kind of used that to my advantage so that people would bully me less.
Yeah.
That was that's literally was my theory. I was like, okay, I'm playing football. People starting to like me now. I was like, okay, I got to use this to not get bullied. Yeah. And that was my mindset. That was truly my mindset. And that's what happened.
Yeah. When you said you learned how to fight to stand up for yourself, what did that look like?
So when we moved back to Memphis, we moved to Illinois, then we moved back to Memphis, and then we moved back to Illinois.
Okay.
So I moved here twice.
But was that for work? Was that for family?
Yeah. When we initially moved out here, it was for work.
Okay.
My dad is a pastor, and so he got an opportunity to work with Smokey Norfolk, who's a well-known gospel artist. My dad was his assistant pastor, so we came out here, and then we moved back to Memphis after my dad would call my grandmother the matriarch of the family.
Okay.
So she passed away, and kind of started a lot of things within our family. So my dad wanted to be back to support our family.
Right.
So that was the main reason why we moved back. And around that time, when we moved back to Memphis, I was staying one summer. I was staying with my aunt. Her name is Ami.
Okay.
And her brother Ethan, he went to the army. He learned karate, jiu-jitsu, everything.
Yeah.
So once I told him one day, I'm like, I'm getting bullied. I'm like, it's bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. He said, okay. He said, I stayed with him once. He said, every day I'm going to teach you how to fight. I was bleed. He's literally like catching me off guard, hitting me. I would be asleep. He'll wake me up. What do you do? He'll have me in a head like, he'd be like, what do you do? How do you get out of this?
Yeah.
And he had sisters around my age too. And imagine the girls around my age, he taught them everything. So they're beating me up.
Yeah.
And then they're like trying to teach me how to do these things. I'm like, man. But that's when I kind of started learning how to fight. to at least protect myself.
Yeah.
And then actually I got in a fight after that, a few fights, and I won. And
let's go.
Then a few people stopped messing with me.
Yeah. So do you feel like when you were fighting, you were looking to harm the person, or was it more like, I'm just gonna let you know that I can handle myself?
It was just for defense.
Yeah.
I never, as long as I've been alive, I've never been aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, bullying.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I would internalize things, I was never a person that would be like, okay, let me go bully somebody back for what they did.
Right.
I couldn't even understand it. Or like, my dad was a very authoritative, very strict as a pastor.
Yeah.
And he would whip me growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be like, man, I can't whip my kids.
Yeah.
So it's just something about like abuse physically that is something that I was never like compelled to do. I don't want to hit somebody. I would rather not.
Yeah.
However, I understand, if I had to defend myself, I want to be able to.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
In this world, yeah.
For sure. I think I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war or something like that.
Yep.
Like,
that's
okay,
a great verse.
Like, I can go with that.
Yes, sir.
As far as the whipping thing goes, I feel like our parents' generation or even their parents' generation, it was just a physical punishment to get a certain type of result, and generally it worked pretty well.
Yep.
And I think towards our generation, not saying we've gotten soft, but I would say more mentally aware that even though it may be the same exact thing that happened to them or their parents, it has different consequences just because I'd say life is a lot easier for us, so we can more or less look at things. How do you feel like it affected you?
Man, I'm the man I am today because of those whippings.
Yeah.
And because of just everything my parents instilled. So it affected me emotionally as a kid. Once again, like I would get whipped, and I'd be like, man, why didn't my dad just talk to me? Like it was times where I felt like, it could have been different.
Yeah.
But then there was times where I deserved it. Like I was just being a rebellious kid, and my dad knew, hey, if the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child, and my dad was not sparing us. All right, and my dad grew up without his dad, so I guess that was the only way he knew best fit from the way he grew up, like you said, just things that he saw. So it growing up, you don't understand it. You just like, why is this happening? But as a man, I'm like, man, that made me who I am today.
Well, and I've had a lot of people on the podcast, and usually the tough stuff, I'm like, hey, are you not necessarily happy that it happened, but like there's recognizing I am where I am today because certain things happen, good or bad.
Sure.
So moving to Illinois, back to Nashville, and then back here, how was it moving that much?
Actually, it was Memphis.
Sorry.
Yep. And man, probably like the first 7 years of my life, every year we moved from a different house.
Okay.
So my first 7 years of life, I was moving house to house. And I actually was just talking having this conversation with my parents not too long ago. But when I was first born, my parents weren't married yet, and so they didn't have a house. I was staying with my grandma in the bed with all my cousins. So then parents finally got a 1-bedroom apartment, 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
Then every year we are leaving, going from house to house. So very early on, I had to learn how to adapt and adjust to my surroundings. So it was hard because I never felt like I fit in because I was just used to just moving around. But that's pretty much what the experience was like.
So when was the last time you guys moved back here?
2013.
Okay.
Right. So after my 8th grade, or actually halfway into my 8th grade year, which I believe is 2013. Yeah. It's like 2012, 2013 was the last time we moved back here.
So For school, were you happy with academics? Was it just, oh, I get to hang out with my friends, or what did school look like?
Uh, it just depends on the year.
Yeah.
When I was in Memphis early on, when I was getting bullied around second, third, fourth grade, fifth grade, like I mentioned, I didn't really have friends.
Mm-hmm.
So of course my dad always instilled in me like, hey, you go to school to learn.
Yeah.
But I was rebellious still. I didn't really care too much about school. But early on, I remember we would have an hour drive to get back to our house from where we stayed.
Oh, man.
Back. Yep, and we was in a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 kids.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, so blow up mattresses. Parents had the one room, one bathroom. We parents come to get us from school, drive an hour just to get home. So during that hour, I was always doing homework.
Okay.
I was always studying. So that was probably the most invested I was in school until I got my master's. But high school, I didn't really care too much about school, to be honest.
What was there any subject that you enjoyed because of a teacher, or just the content of the class, or what was going on in high school there?
Man, Miss Canavino was one of that's the first name that comes to mind. She was a science teacher at Oswego East.
Okay.
And just I gravitated towards her because as a rebellious kid, she was somebody that was very patient with me and one of my best friends, a few of my best friends that was in that class.
Okay.
Another teacher was Miss Nelson, my English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Burgess, she was my early childhood teacher at high school.
Okay.
So I've had even like my third grade teacher, I'm trying to remember her name, but I've had some teachers that I was fortunate enough to kind of gravitate to.
Yeah.
Despite my character during those times. So
do you think that, why do you think you were able to gravitate towards them? Was it how they reacted to you? Was it how you reacted to them? What was there?
How they reacted to me.
Okay.
Yep. And a few college professors as well, but it was different during those days, in college versus high school, where I think it was more intimate.
Okay.
Because you're saying the same teachers pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And they just did a great job of like reeling me back in when I would deviate from everything going on.
Mm-hmm. As far as living in a 1-bedroom apartment, what would you do for meals? For what did a day look like of meals for you?
Man, McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
If my mom or dad wasn't, well, really my mom, if my mom wasn't cooking, man, they was just getting us. They were just getting us food. We didn't have the means to have options during that time, you know. So it was survival, you know. And as a kid, you don't understand that. You're not thinking like that. But it's like I understood now. At that time, my parents were extremely hardworking, middle class people, making a way for their family.
Yeah. So what did a home cooked meal look like for you?
Man, spaghetti, a lot of spaghetti, chicken, meatloaf, broccoli. So my mom would throw down, I would say, pretty much healthy food, mashed potatoes, a lot of Kool-Aid, and burgers, hot dogs. My dad would grill sometimes. So that's a lot of what I remember my parents pretty much making.
What was there ever a conversation around health or weight, or what did that look like in the household?
Man, it wasn't until recently. My grandmother had diabetes. Okay. And my dad recently was diagnosed with diabetes type 2. So you know, understanding that, you know, we're predisposed to that. Yeah. You know, we understand that we got to take care of our health. You know, we got to do better with, you know, what we consume, taking care of our bodies. So early on, that wasn't a conversation. Like I said, it was just, whatever we had to do to survive. And of course, once again, my parents was doing the best that they could. Yeah. But as we got older and we started to understand like the importance of health,
Yeah.
That's when we start to take those things more serious.
When you were doing sports and stuff like that, did you ever try? They're like, hey, I'm either too small or I'm too big, or was that ever a thought in your head?
That was certainly a thought in my head.
Okay.
Especially as a running back. And I think like my freshman year of high school, a lot of people, I would hear a lot of times, I think you're small, small for a running back. And that kind of messed me up mentally. And it made me scared to hit holes, and it even affected me. It affected how I played the game until my junior year.
Okay.
So it was just something that I knew, like, okay, I got to get bigger. I want to get bigger. So and I knew everybody would say, hey, you got to live in the gym, you got to work out. So I knew I had to work out, and I each year I got better and better at fitness. And now it's a part of who I am. But
what did the development of fitness look like for you throughout the years? I'm gonna check the phone real quick. But as far as starting out as a freshman, we're doing football. Is it the coaches introducing you to the gym? Is it everybody else on the team, or how did that go for you?
Yeah. So freshman year, I was introduced to fitness by my coaches, and of course, they would tell me the same thing that I was hearing from everybody else. Hey, you got to be getting bigger by your sophomore year. You got to get bigger by your junior year, because everybody else is hearing the same thing.
Right.
So, yeah, it was something that every year our coaches was instilling in us, like, hey, you guys need to be in the gym. My high school program, they had some early morning lift sessions.
Oh man.
Yeah, like 6 a.m.
Okay.
After the season was over. But other than that, a few times in the summer, I would lift and train, but a lot of my training was like field work and developing my skill versus trying to pump iron. It wasn't until I got into college I was really like, okay, I need to start getting bigger.
Yeah.
I need to focus on working out more, and that's when I took it more serious.
What did field work look like for you as far as in high school, as working on your craft?
Man, a lot of agility, a lot of agility work, a lot of like just understanding the game at the position I was at. So I played corner during high school, running back, cornerback, and were my main positions. So yeah, just trying to work at that craft and you know, I love the game of football. So I studied it. I would literally sit there for hours and just watch football players and then go outside and just train. So I spent a lot of time by myself working on that craft, and fell in love with it.
What was the most enjoyable games that you had in high school?
Most enjoyable game in high school? I think my sophomore year, our last game of the season, we played against Romeoville.
Okay.
And Romeoville had this really good running back in our conference, and I actually just ran into him not too long ago. But man, he was so good. And I remember coming into that game, I was like, man, I'm gonna have a great game. I'm gonna outplay him. And that was like the last game of the season, and I think I had like 4 touchdowns, a little over like $150 that game. And
that seems like a good game.
Hey, my best college game, my favorite college game, is I had, I think 4 or 3 touchdowns for 296, and broke our school rushing record at Aurora University.
That's wild.
Yeah, I don't really talk about it that much. But hey, if you ask me my most memorable, that's easily the one.
So for that, are you just breaking every tackle, running the routes correctly, hitting the right gaps? Like what makes that game happen for you?
Well, the O-line.
Yeah,
we had a great that game. Our O-line, it was like the holes were just there.
Right.
I made my read. They did a great job of blocking. It was against our rivals, Benedictine. So I'm assuming that kind of galvanized our O-line to block their tails off, and that's exactly what happened. All I had to do was make a cut and run.
Yeah.
They opened it up. So that game, I got all the credit, but man, the O-line, they worked hard too.
So I only learned this maybe like 5-6 years ago, but so when a play is called, you have a certain gap that is the offensive line is going to try to open up for you.
Yep.
And then you get into the secondary. And then is it like one-on-one there, or there's a bunch of guys there in the secondary, or what usually happens for you?
It depends on what the defense is running. And unfortunately for Benedictine, it was a lot of one-on-ones that time. And when your O-line is blocking so good that you're getting to the secondary untouched, you know they just doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of that game, I was just, by the time I'm 10 yards down the line of scrimmage, and I haven't even been touched yet. So man, it was they were on fire that game. They don't get enough credit.
When you are going to one-on-one, do you have like a go-to move? When I played rugby, before I was playing rugby, I played competitive table tennis. So like there was not
table tennis is so hard. That's not an easy sport. A lot of hand-eye coordination.
I appreciate that. Doesn't really transfer over to rugby, but my tackling was just atrocious. So anytime I was like on one-on-one with somebody, like they turned my hips and then just go the other way. I got decent on offense, but defense terrible. How would you approach that one-on-one? Like, what was your plan going into it?
Well, first, let me just say, tackling with no gear on is like I don't even know how you could do it.
Not well. That's how I do it.
Well, yeah, I would be scared to tackle. Man, that's like, man, you're colliding with somebody full speed. I would just let them go.
It was a lot of wrestlers either played beforehand or like they would coach a lot of the guys, but there's a rule in rugby where you have to wrap up, and if you don't, then it's like you can get a card for it. My first tournament, I got kicked out of the game because I didn't wrap up. Like I literally just like fell and then I just like shoulder checked the guy.
Yeah, that's
they kicked me out.
Wow, that's a hurt.
Yeah, so you have to wrap up, and how I was taught is you put your head behind the person. So if he's coming this way and you put your head in front, like you're getting knocked out, which only happened to me once.
I'm gonna be honest. That sounds like something that would happen a lot. I would be so scared to tackle without a helmet.
Yeah. So for us, I think the immediate effect is so like, hey, I better not screw this up again. Like you only screw up putting your head in the wrong place like once or twice.
Yep.
Because then like you're gonna learn right away. And I think with a helmet, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. But then you're like, 10 years later, what's happening?
yeah, I can believe it. Yeah, no, rugby is that's a fierce sport.
Yeah, it was very fun. So for me, one-on-one, I would have like one or two moves. I would just goose step, slow down, act like I was going to the left, and then keep going over there, or I would just chip and chase. I right over the guy. Like, what were your go-tos when you were coming up on a guy?
I think to be honest, you let the game come to you.
Okay.
Like it's the read and react.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it wasn't like premeditated like what I'm gonna do. It was like, hey, in this situation, this guy is coming here. I think if I had to say one move that was consistent, I was very good at like going from slow to fast.
Okay.
And so like I was very good at misdirecting with the way I move. So I'll make you think, oh, I'm slowing down. Then I'll just like, then I'll hit you with a fast move. So I would say that was probably my go-to move if I had one.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, when you get to a point where you train a lot and you put yourself in a lot of scenarios, it becomes read and react. So I'm just trying to I'm just reacting to whatever they do. So if somebody coming this way, I'm looking to try to cut back on him, and then it becomes angles.
Yeah.
So that's where it started to get to when you dissect the game that way.
Yeah. So it seemed to go really well for you that night.
Yeah, no, really, really well.
So how did you choose to go to Aurora?
So actually, I had a few other D3 offers. I had a D2 offer. I had an NAIA offer. I went to like Robert Morris.
What's NAIA?
NAIA is like a D2, D3.
Okay.
Kind of in between there. So I had a few different offers, but I would say one, my coach in high school, he was an alma mater at Aurora University. So he kind of helped with the coaching staff there. I got a little money to go there, but also my dad, when we visited Aurora University versus all the other schools we went to, Robert Morris, the head coach at that time, Rich Punks, shout out to Rich Punks, all right? He man, he was so inviting. Like, and he didn't treat us like another number.
Okay.
Versus some of the other coaches. He seemed like he was really invested in,
right,
you know, me as a person, as a player.
Yeah.
And that my dad noticed that, and I noticed it, and I was like, okay. And it was close to home too. Aurora it was 15 minutes from me too.
Okay.
I was like, I want to go somewhere far, but I didn't mind staying close.
Yeah.
And there was an opportunity to play early, and so I would say the main reason though was the coaches.
Okay.
Studeman, that's who recruited me. He came to our school one day.
Yeah.
He was the offensive coordinator, and then there was like a little tryout and for colleges to come in, and I did really good.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of picked up a few more offers. But Studeman, he saw me again, and he came up to me. He was like, he was like, I want you to come play at Aurora.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked, and then ultimately I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. So you get to school, are you just totally focused on football and lifting, or what else is going on?
Man, you know, I enjoyed college.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoyed it so much that my first semester, I remember like the last 3 games, it's like the last 4 games. One practice, our head coach, Punks, came up to me. He's like, hey, man, you are close to being ineligible. And not only ineligible, it's like, man, you about to flunk out of college.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like you need to focus on your studies. Man, I had a moment where I was like, okay, I need to. I literally said, I talked to my parents too. I was like, I'm paying to go to school, you know, but and of course wanting to be eligible. But I'm like, man, I can't flunk out of school.
Yeah.
So that was the moment where I was like, okay, I got to take my studies serious. I started going to all my teachers like, hey, what do I need to do? And my teachers were like, okay. They gave me the blueprint.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I need to be focused. So, but initially, like any college student,
absolutely,
enjoying the freedom.
Yeah.
Women were a thing.
Yeah. So I've heard they're around in colleges.
A lot of other addictions that I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I fell into the trap of the college life.
Right.
So yeah.
So how were you? Was it a complete cold turkey of just turning things around, or was it, hey, I'm just going to study a little bit more, I'm in the student center? What did that transition look like from, hey, like you're about to flunk out, to like doing all these things that you needed to do?
So the initial turnaround was I had to do a lot. I had to go and study. I had to get tutored. I had to work my way just to get back to even fair grounds.
Yeah.
So that happened my sophomore year too.
Okay.
I got close my sophomore year. Then my junior and senior year, I figured it out. I'm like, okay, I just got to study more. I got to be prepared.
Yeah.
As ultimately what it came down to. But you know, you try to find a balance. You try to say, I try to say, and once I figured it out my freshman year, you know, coming into my sophomore year, I'm like, I figured it out at the end. I'll try to do it like that again.
Right.
Try to still do the party, do the that, and then try to at the last second. But it wasn't working.
Yeah.
It wasn't working. And so I remember a quote. It says, "It's failing to prepare. It's preparing to fail."
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck with me. I'm like, man, I'm always I'm failing to prepare, so I'm preparing myself to fail.
Right.
So ultimately, I just realized I just got to start preparing.
So what did preparing look like for you? Was it journaling? Was it using a calendar? How did you start to prepare?
Studying. Just looking over the material. Man, the teacher say read, just read. Whatever man, you do this assignment. Just, you know, I worked a little bit in college, but I was pretty much always in sports and doing things. So definitely busy, but man, I just came to a moment where I'm like, man, I just got to do the work.
did they have a student center for you that like forced you to do this stuff, or were you at home? Like, how did you initially get started each day when you had to do whatever the task was?
So what it eventually came down to is I just started spending a lot of time in the library.
Okay.
So I was as soon as during the season, after football, take my shower, I would eat, and then I would go study. I would just go to the library. And then after season, I was working at my school. We had a like you could be in a library, you could be like a supervisor at a gym.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I was getting paid to study.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, while I'm here, just study.
Yeah.
Just look over your material, read.
Yeah.
So that's when I just started finding I just started taking studying more serious, just like I did football.
Right.
I took that mindset and transitioned it to the whatever material I was studying.
Mm-hmm. So you tightened up the routine.
Yeah.
As far as lifting went, what was it like getting on a program in a college?
So they gave us programs, and I think we had shout out Coach Trudeau. He was a great. He's our strength and conditioning. He was our strength and conditioning coach at the time.
Yeah.
So he gave us a lot of a great training method that I kind of just in the summer I would just kind of modify it a little bit.
Yeah.
But just a lot of the original cleans, squatting, benching, things of that nature. So I was just in the weight room more.
Yeah.
And just taking things that I'm learning from different people, trying to apply it to myself, and I think that worked out for me really well.
We can definitely edit this part out, but I'll ask the question. As far as steroids go, was it something that was prevalent in the locker room? Was it suggested by a lot of guys? Some of the guys? What was the environment?
I've never been approached about steroids.
Okay.
Nice. Not that I know. I don't know anybody that took steroids. Or
That's
not knowingly. I think I have heard some guys taking it, but I was never a person that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna try steroids." It never even crossed my mind, and I wouldn't even. I have no intent to, no desire to. So it was never something that even crossed my mind personally.
And in the locker room, did you know of anybody doing it? Not that we need to name names, but it's interesting just to see where it comes into people's lives sometimes.
I just remember there were some guys that were really strong, and they'll be like, "Oh, he's on steroids," or one guy would come back the next year a lot bigger, and they'll say,
"Gotcha,
he took some steroids."
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can remember of steroids.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't ever remember like hearing somebody tell me like,
"Gotcha,
hey, bro, I'm juiced, bro. You want to come juice with me?" or anything like that. So
yeah, the strength stuff always. At some point, I was like, "Oh, everyone's on it." Then I know some farm boys that it's just like, "Oh no, you're an athlete."
Yep. Now I'm sure. Trust me. I'm sure some people took it. I'm not refuting that.
Yeah.
I think there were some people that probably did.
Yeah.
But I guess that was a conversation I wasn't involved in, and people probably just knew that, so they weren't brought up.
As far as like putting on size and stuff like that, what did your eating routine look like at school?
So I didn't eat a lot in college. I probably ate like once or twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a few times where I was probably excessively eating at our school calves and just eating out. But it wasn't until after I graduated college, I started taking my diet more serious. I started thinking about caloric deficit, so I can start to cut up and things of that nature, and looking at the science behind, okay, how can I be in tip-top shape too for longevity.
Right.
So
at nearing the end of your college career, sports and academically, what were you thinking about after it was ending?
Well, so this kind of gets into KidStrong.
Yeah.
I was trying to play pro football.
Okay.
So I kind of the end of my career, I'm like, what do I want to do? Like, okay, I want to continue to pursue football.
Yeah.
And so I went to some tryouts, but right before I graduated, because I mentioned I got my master's, so I stayed for an extra year.
Okay.
And
what was the master's in?
Criminal justice and psychology.
Okay.
And with a psychology focus as well. But that last semester, I'm like, okay, I need to start thinking of where I'm gonna work, how I'm gonna make money. And man, I just prayed. I prayed one day, and my friend hits me up. Like, hey man, there's a job opportunity. I want you to come by and we can talk about it. Now, I always wanted to work with kids. I mentioned Miss Burgess, my early childhood teacher. In that class, the last semester, the last 4 weeks, we had kids come in.
Okay.
And we would basically teach them, and we would interacting with them. And I remember doing that, and I was like, okay, this is something I could do.
Yeah.
And man, my friend hits me up. He's like, man, come over. So I come over, and then he starts telling me about KidStrong.
Hey, that's trusting. Hey man, I got an opportunity for you. Just pull up.
Yeah, hey, and he was the head coach. He was the manager there.
Okay.
And very cool guy and a great coach. Shout out Devin Whitaker. All right, I'm actually repping his shirt right now.
Nice.
Right, fit with D Witt. All right, but no, he contacted me and told me to come over and gave me described KidStrong as it is. And just from him describing it, I was like, I would love to do that. And I was like, I can do it part-time. I was still training.
Yeah.
I was going to tryouts. I went to Indiana, Detroit, a few different places to try out for different CFL teams. I had a agent, and man, I rededicated my life to Christ.
Yeah.
And everything changed. There's a verse in the Bible. It says, God will give you the desires of your heart. And I used to think, man, okay, the desires of my heart is to play football.
Yeah.
But then I got a revelation that the desires of my heart was God putting desires in my heart. And ultimately, it took me away from football, brought me here. And ultimately, like I mentioned, creating a faith-based podcast to spread the word.
When did the rededication happen? Was there an experience, or when did that happen for you?
Man, so my whole life was an experience. Like I mentioned, my dad was a pastor, so I grew up in a church. My dad used to say, I had a drug problem. My mom drugged me to church.
That's good.
I had a drug problem.
That's good.
I had a drug problem too. But no, my dad, I grew up in a church, and and like I mentioned to you earlier, I didn't really have people I could vent to. A lot of the times I felt alone. I started messing with drugs. I started doing things, started having a void. And, there was a few experiences, but one experience in particular, I was at a party, right? This is a day before a football game.
Okay.
My sophomore year.
Yeah.
I'm at a party where just a whole bunch of people chilling, we doing things, college students do. We're in a circle, smoking a joint, and I was feeling lightheaded. I'm like, what's wrong? I just felt dizzy. I turned and I laid my head on the counter. I wasn't feeling good. My friend was like, Tyran, what's wrong? I was like, man, I'm not feeling too good. He's like, man, just hit this.
Yeah.
He's like, you'll feel better. And in my head, I'm like, man, what are you talking about? And I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I pass out.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a house full of people.
Yeah.
I'm on the floor, unconscious.
Yeah.
And I just heard a voice say, Tyran, you're not supposed to be here. Get up. I literally rose up, and then my eyes were just like this. And, they don't understand what just happened.
Right.
But a lot of people just looking at me like they was just freaking out. They was trying to figure out, it was like a mass hysteria because they trying to figure out, is he dead?
Right.
What's wrong with him? But
Who bought this shit?
Yeah. Hey, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, man, but that was the moment where that was not a coming to Jesus moment, but because I think I had plenty of moments, but that was one moment where the first moment I truly heard the voice of God. And then after that, I had another moment during COVID, just a very dark place, struggling with things, a void in my heart, just a lot of things. And I hit rock bottom. And I was like, he been suicidal. Yeah. And I was like, man, what can I do? And I just prayed. I was like, God, if you reveal yourself to me. And he did. He did through his word. And it's a process. You know, I'm still growing to this day, but I've came a long way. And that I rededicated my life. Actually, I think like 2 years ago I got rebaptized, or maybe last year. Last year around April, I got rebaptized, and it's been a journey ever since.
If you don't mind talking about that dark time in COVID, when you're going through the moments now, looking back on it, is there anything that you would have liked to hear, or obviously perspectives like, hey, like look where I am now, like what would have either helped you get through it faster or not even gotten to that space in the first place?
Man, I think being where I'm at now,
Okay.
having my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
If I could have had that then, I feel like that moment could have been avoided. But I don't know. I just, like I said, I was always like, I don't know, I felt like an outcast, like just different. And so I never, like, I was going through that time, but I wasn't telling people. I didn't have nobody. I never felt like I could just tell people these things.
Yeah.
So and I don't know why. Maybe it's just me, but I just always felt like, hey, just trust yourself. And maybe because of trauma, past experiences is why I felt like that. But I guess the only remedy that I could think of is what I know now, and that's Christ.
Yeah. Well, and to hit on a couple points there, a majority of the people I've had on the podcast have done drugs, and it's just like
Western culture.
Nobody talks about it, and it seems like this taboo thing. It seems like terrible. Yet, I would say for most people, alcohol it might be worse. than a lot of the drugs going around.
Dipped in some alcohol too,
or at least the stigma going around it. And then as well as the mental health part of it, like not being able to talk about it is wild. Like I grew up in a household where my parents got divorced, but mental health was always a huge thing. We always went to therapy and stuff like that. But I still didn't feel like the opening up thing was an option, even though I went to therapy for an extended period of time. And it like talking to friends, like, it seems as if you have to be so close where that really confident guy talks about, and you're like, oh, no way that you would do it.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, well, I have my own experience I'd love to talk to, but it seems that it only comes out either like on podcast or like somebody's wife tells you about it. It's like, did you hear about this? Then you can go talk to them about it.
Yep.
But
that's true.
It's so hard to just open up in general about anything. But yeah, that was my 2 cents on that.
how was it therapy? Because that was something I'll even consider when I was in those dark moments.
Oh, I thought it was dog shit for a long time, but it was mostly because of me.
Okay.
Because I was not able to open up to the experience. And also, just like in any profession, there's going to be good therapists, there's going to be bad therapists.
Yep.
One of my therapists, so I have ADHD, but I was diagnosed with bipolar 3, which is just made up. It's not it's not even a real thing, but a doctor I was seeing specialized in it. He's like, oh, this is what it is. So my therapist is like, oh, we got to get you to do things. And I had ADHD. I was lazy from doing like chores, like literally just sometimes I wasn't. Yeah. Sometimes I wasn't doing chores. And they're like, all right, we're going to use just the stick, no carrot, no rewards. So they're like, all right, if you don't go home and mow the lawn, we're going to send you to a halfway house. And
wow,
like, that is wild. Like that, like they could only think of like punishments for me. And I was like, my mom's like, I don't think they're gonna let someone go to a homeless shelter that's got like 15 grand in the bank.
That's crazy
for a punishment. But it was, I was so used to things being taken away that I was like, all right, like I'm not gonna get attached to stuff. Did not like, that's where therapy didn't help with that specific therapist. But then when I was able to talk to other therapists and feel that it was open, comfortable, and safe, like those times it went well. But a lot of the time, there was at one point, I think I told this story a couple months ago, but I was going through a hard time in like freshman or sophomore year. Like I was feeling overwhelmed, and this is how I recall the conversation going. But she's like, "Oh, like what do you think about what's going on?" I'm like, "I would really love like a reset." And I was probably just behind on some homework, or like there was a big test coming up.
That'll stress me out for real too.
Absolutely. And I'd be like, "Oh man, I wish I could just like start over and like reset or whatever it is." She's like, "Hey, can I bring your mom in?" So brings my mom in, and she's like, "Hey, I think we should send your son to inpatient therapy for suicidal ideation." And I'm like, "Where is this coming from?" So
Wow.
anytime I would hear something at a young age that a professional told me, I was like, "Oh, it's got to be true." So then for the next like 3-4 months, I always thought about killing myself, like within any scenario. It was never going to do it. Like I just thought about it. Like I didn't really understand the difference between a thought and like an action. I just thought like that's what was going on. And
I can relate.
I wouldn't say hysterically or in funny fashion. There'd be like people at the hospital that they would cut themselves and things of that nature. So I tried cutting myself once, and it hurt so much.
That's called Is that parasuicide? There's a term for that.
I have no idea, but it was awful.
I had like a seizures one time. I was like, no, I didn't do it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I tried like eating a pizza once and throwing that up because like I felt bad about my body. I was like, this is awful. Like,
wow.
I would have the ideas about this stuff, and I'm like, this is not me.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah,
totally.
And I think it's tough at a young age when you're just being told these things from professionals, and like I never questioned them. I was like, this is your job. This is what you do. So now I question everybody, but
as you should. Hey, I learned in school because we took like a medicine class. Like I think my senior year, we learned about medicines. We talked about what is it when placebo? We talked about placebo effects.
Absolutely.
We talked about the side effects of drugs.
Yeah.
We talked about how every drug it messing with your like your neurotransmitters.
Oh, absolutely.
And I remember one time they even one of our teachers mentioned how, man, doctors get paid for prescribing medicine. So some doctors just prescribing medicine just for the income from it.
Yeah.
So there is a reason to be skeptical because you don't know who has your best interest.
Yeah.
And I think that's the scary side to relying on the medical system and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And I think for myself, like I mentioned, I thought about doing therapy, and I was always skeptical of like, oh, what if this person does this or what if that? And so I considered it, and I still wish I did it because I've heard a lot of good things from therapy and how it has helped some people heal.
Yeah.
So I can relate to you there too.
And I feel like there's therapy, and then there's different. Like I took some language courses where it was specifically on words, and the words that you say, the term was words become stories and the stories become reality. And the way that you talk about something is like, oh man, like I suck or this, that, or another thing. And then generally, like if you say those things, like you're going to be hunched over, like you feel bad, you're like, just your heart's racing.
Yep.
But if you like open up, and you say, like, I'm a wonderful person, I'm going to have a great day. Like you're open, you're up, and both of those things may be true, but it's just depending on what you would like to speak into existence at that point. So I think that was one of the more helpful, we'll go with therapies that wasn't like a traditional route that had helped me a lot. And I apologize to everybody in my life around those 6 to 12 months because anytime someone
wasn't a nice
they would say like a certain word this way or that way, and I was like, oh well, maybe you should use the word like this, and I was like, oh no, it was worse than when I started CrossFit. But moving forward there, so what was it that enticed you so much for KidStrong? You said that he talked about what KidStrong was about. What was it about that resonated with you?
Before we get into that, let me say this. You just mentioned like your words or the way you think. man, my old coach after Punks, the guy I mentioned.
Yep.
Actually, we had a professional football player, Coach Don BB.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he was my coach for 2 years at Aurora
That's
University.
super cool.
And man, he kind of helped not only reintroduce my faith, but he would give us quotes, he would give us verses. One quote he gave us, one of the first quotes he gave us was, "Watch your thoughts, they become your beliefs. Watch your beliefs, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character." All right, and ultimately, your character is determined by your thoughts.
Yeah.
Through that quote, and I would just think about that, like, man, I need to change the way I think because that'll affect who I am ultimately. And yeah, influence definitely is ultimately what affects your action.
Yeah.
You know, we all influence, and it's about, well, what are you allowing yourself to be influenced by? And so I'm thankful I'm using Christ because that's my hope, and that's what's helping me overcome a lot of these addictions, these barriers. But man, regarding KidStrong, man, he just told me the concept of what it was. All right, 45-minute classes, you know, ultimately helping kids with character, physical, and cognitive development. And he just described the experience that he was having.
Yeah.
And that was enough to kind of compel me to at least try it out. And then the next week he was like, "Hey, just come in and observe a class, you see what it was like." And then when I came in and saw it, and then I saw it was exactly as he described it, I'm like, man, sign me up. And I've been here for 2.5 years.
That's awesome.
Yep. And started during COVID.
Yeah.
So imagine your goal is to help kids learn how to interact, work on themselves physically, mentally, cognitively, and you're saying kids that for a year or however long COVID lasted, they were sheltered, they was at home. So and then we came in with masks.
Yep.
So it wasn't the KidStrong you see now.
Yeah.
Totally different. Kids were scared to high five. They were scared to talk. So that was the beautiful part of literally saying, like, the kids transform from so shy and reserved to like becoming more confident and more confident in themselves. So
yeah, no, I mean, when I saw I always forget his name. What's his not it's McQuicken or
Matthias.
No, the coach, down in Texas.
Not Scott.
No. Anyway, so I saw, like, I saw the ads for it, and then I saw him. He was saying that KidStrong was good. I was like, oh, okay, like, let's sign up for it. Let's see what it's all about. And I was like, oh, it's just going to be like CrossFit for kids. But then when I got here, I was like, oh, like, it's a lot more. Like, the first off, the handshaking thing, like, phenomenal. I was like, this is going to be great for Adeline. She's going to struggle with things. She's going to do well with things. Competition is good to win and lose.
Yep.
And then also, I think for her, just getting in the repetitions, even though she doesn't do a lot of what she's told other than the workouts, it's phenomenal for her to at least be exposed to it. And I'm very happy that that's an option, because when we would do like the Park District stuff, they would just be like, like, Adeline's not going to talk. She's going to do one drill, and then we're just going to run around for the rest of the time. So this has been phenomenal.
Man, her growth has been like, man, she wasn't even giving me high five. I'm like, Audie, can I get it? And now she's high fiving. She's coming a long way too. And man, it's great seeing the growth and even the family dynamic. You know, seeing the way you and her interact now, and seeing you noticing those things. Mom's noticing those things, and seeing her become more and more comfortable with the classes and comfortable with interacting with people. It's a beautiful thing to watch. I'm gonna be honest, and I enjoy being a part of it. And man, shout out KidStrong, shout out Matt and Megan Sharp. All right, shout out Patrick. Shout out the whole team that create the program. Man, I think Scott mentioned it. Man, it's a lot of these people working hard behind the scenes. You know, occupational therapists. They got professional child development experts creating these programs, and they bought in, and their job is to get the coaches bought in. Because ultimately the experience is, the coaches play a role in the experience, and the program is going to be effective regardless.
Absolutely.
It's a great program, and it's ultimately about how do we as coaches, how can we bring out the best within those students? And I only know that because I've been around people bought in.
Yeah.
Devin, the guy I mentioned, he's been bought in since he told me about KidStrong.
Yeah.
And just watching him for 2.5 years, kind of studying him.
Right.
He's a natural coach. So he helped. I think maybe I'm a natural coach or teacher. I'm starting to see my gifts, but he helped bring a lot of what was I guess you would say was latent and within me.
Yeah.
He helped kind of bring those things out of me. So but ultimately they helping get more and more people bought into the goal of, man, helping kids win. Like, what's on the wall over there? Helping kids win. That's our goal. And so it is fulfilling, and especially as somebody who just mentioned, growing up, I didn't have people to talk to. I didn't know how to interact. I was bullied. I was all these things. And now I get to show kids, like, hey, you can do it differently. You can love. You can spread love.
Yeah.
You can be confident in yourself regardless of what people say, because people gonna say things regardless.
Right. Well, and generally people that are confident are not going to be going around bullying people.
Yeah. Yep. That's true.
So I would say the only hurdle for you guys is that first class when the kid comes in.
Yep.
How do you deal with, like, every single kid that I saw that was like their first day, either running around or crying or screaming, and like for me as a parent, like Adeline would just like either sit there or just say no, and like I'm okay with that because like I'm used to that. I've been to a lot of classes with her at other places, and she's like, not gonna happen here, boss.
Yep.
How do you talk to the parents and be like, hey, in a week or two, like, or a month or two, they're going to be doing wheelbarrows on their own, going to be doing somersaults, hanging. Like, how do you talk to them and be like, just let's make it through the first couple of weeks, or how does that conversation go?
Well, first it's about getting the parents to understand that 9 times out of 10 that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's normal. It's getting them to understand that, like, don't feel like, I think most parents when they see their child, especially in an environment where now kids are getting comfortable, parents might feel like, like my child is the odd person out, but in reality, that's normal.
Right.
So getting them to understand, hey, your child is in an environment that's new to them. New people. Just like we just mentioned, we talked about skeptic.
Right.
We skeptical, but kids are they skeptical too.
Right.
And you use the word attachment. I didn't have. I was attached to my mom for a short period of time, and then somewhere in between, due to, once again, my ways, I rebelled. I was very rebellious because of trauma or whatever, and I didn't have nobody I was attached to.
Right.
So kids are coming in and they are attached to their parents, and anything outside of that is like uncomfortable territory. It's new, and understanding that everything is new to kids, but especially KidStrong. So, man, I just try to get parents to understand, just like anything, it's gonna take rips. It's gonna take time. Yeah. And if they're willing to stay long enough to see their child grow, which is exactly what the program is, they'll see the results.
Right.
I'm gonna be honest, as every kid that I've seen stay for a prolonged period, we've always seen results. And once again, that's due to the program. Yeah. From, like you mentioned, from the social green, working on confidence, the affirmation,
words,
thoughts. I am strong. I am brave. I can do this. Before and after every class, we compete. We award students for good behavior. That's positive reinforcement, and we want to reinforce and strengthen these behaviors so that outside of KidStrong, they're going to continue to be high character and confident kids, and that's what we seeing.
Before we finish things up, you mentioned you wanted to start a podcast. Do you have a name for it, and what's that podcast going to be about?
So yeah, I'm thinking about a podcast, and the name for it is here. I actually
pull it up. We got time.
I got some notes. I got some notes, but all right,
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Let's talk about it. I don't have a timetable. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I mentioned it would be a faith-based podcast called Renewed Mind. Okay. Which is based off a scripture, because the Bible says, "My people perish for the lack of knowledge." So the lack of knowing there's a lot of things to know. But yeah, ultimately a renewed mind is the podcast. It's going to be a faith-based, just spreading the word of Christ to help people renew their minds. People suffering with addictions, feeling alone, attachment, everything we kind of just talked about,
right?
Helping them understand that you're not alone, and that ultimately we loved by Jesus, by Christ. And so yeah, I'm still in the works, trying to figure out how I'm gonna put that together. But yeah, it's gonna be built on just spreading the word of God through Jesus, helping people know who Jesus is, how to develop a relationship with him. And and I think it would be intended for anybody of all ages, of all backgrounds, no matter who you are, what you believe, what you don't believe.
Right.
Essentially, I think the goal would be just spreading the word, the knowledge, and then spreading love. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Then we'll finish up with, actually, where are people going to find that? Are you going to be posting on social media? Like, how are they going to find out when that comes out?
Yeah, so I just recently I've been kind of sharing a little bit on social media about this idea. I still have no timetable.
Yeah.
I'm right now, everything is kind of being conceptualized. So I'm kind of like building ideas. So like,
what's the Instagram handle, or where would they see updates?
I'm not. So I would say follow me at @tbaily_10 on Instagram. I'm not really.
We're not there yet.
Yeah. I'm not really a social media guy. I'm learning the ways, but I'm still kind of growing in that area. And but I'll probably end up creating another platform, and I'll probably call it Renewed Mind. So hopefully that'll happen soon through the grace of God. I don't know when. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to get all these resources that you got, man. This is great. And so but yeah, I'm still kind of putting everything together. And when the time is right, the goal is that I'll be spreading the word.
Absolutely. And then what's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
Health is peace, is being able to be confident in knowing that I can enjoy life, and that I'm loved, and that regardless of what people say, regardless of what I've done in the past, I'm forgiven for those things, and I'm able to, and that, I don't have to become what happened to me. My dad got a book called From Victim to Victor, essentially saying like, you don't have to become a victim to your past, but you can be victorious. And so that's health, is freedom of worry. And I just want to talk about it, but my favorite verse, Matthew 6:33, it says, seek first the kingdom and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added. And right before that, it says, do not worry about what you eat, what you drink, or what you wear. It says, for all these things do the Gentiles seek, or people who don't believe. And then it says, God knows you need these things. And then right after it says, but seek first the kingdom and his righteousness. So I'm learning how not to seek clothes, shoes, all these things the world seek, but seeking God, because God is within us. And it's only possible through Jesus Christ. All right. Faith alone, guys. Renewed mind. All right. Shout out to Jesus. All you have is a free gift. If you believe in Jesus, you can get that peace. That's where the peace comes from. It's not a peace that I created myself.
Right.
It's a peace given as a gift from God, just from believing in his son. So yeah.
And then what's something from your life that you think people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Man, that to just love. We live in a world where we moving far and far and far away from love, through the culture, through the music, through the shows, through we mentioned bullying, that regardless of what people believe, that we can agree to disagree and still love each other for those things.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what people take away. You know, whether they take away that or not, that's up to them. But I think that would be the intent.
Yeah, love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, and thank you for coming to the location. I appreciate it, Mr. Alexander.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Here we go.